Well, hello, Joe. How are you?
Hello guys, how you doing? I'm doing well, thank you very much.
Nice
Enjoying
to
my
meet
Monday.
you. Yeah, yeah. Happy Monday for sure. So, typically, because you're, the first time on here, I'd love you to kind of give us your background, what you've been up to, and how you ended up here.
Okay, so how I found you guys is a big shout out to Yellowstone Farms. I mean, that's one awesome. I'm super jealous of that setup he has, and now he's building part two. It's just like living vicariously through the videos. And then that's how pretty much found out about you guys and been following you guys since. But what brings me here is my background in basically general construction, general contracting, which leads to the whole reheat theory and where that comes in and falls in the cannabis world is I got into the cannabis world about 6 years ago, 7 years ago with a shredder. It's basically a tree shredder, right? But it's designed for fibrous material. Now I worked for the company for 5 years. We've parted our ways since just exactly a year ago, actually, but no hard feelings. And I would not say anything bad about this unit at all. Or the company at all either. I mean, the system is designed to shred fibrous material. Now, to make it so that it gets to the decomposing stage quicker. All right. So I introduced that into the cannabis world a little while back. For a lot of the people who were the saddest part of the industry was, they were throwing it in a dumpster with inert material, and it ends up in a landfill somewhere instead of being broken down and put back in the ground where it should be in biology and the nutrients and all that it can provide for the next grow. So I made a run selling those machines, and I was in and out of these um, different grow facilities, whether they're indoor grow facilities or outdoor units. Um, but what I found in a lot of them was um, their general overall builds were gawky. They were very cumbersome looking, and the reheat made so much sense. Um, there was a lot of spikes. You see spikes in temperature, spikes in humidity, and it's real difficult to control when you have so many different mechanicals at once. So that's kind of some of my background in where we are today, and us talking about the reheat and the shredders. So I don't know, you guys, any interest in any questions on the machines?
So, the reheat is that like taking the stocks and using it in a
two
control?
separate two separate one's mechanical. We're talking about in the grow room or in a dry facility, where you're actually mechanical with air conditioners, getting rid of dehumidifiers.
Yep.
They're like, getting rid of those. Now on the other side is the shredder, completely separate situation. That's back into the soil and the biology of the situation of breaking down stalks, leaves, root balls, um, being able to have that cocoa fiber. A lot of the indoor facilities are hydro. They grow on cocoa fiber. This particular machine has no problems ripping down the cocoa fibers. Um, what it does is it breaks down uh, the cellular structure. So if you know, like a cannabis plant, I always tell people who aren't familiar with it, it's basically bamboo, but with a solid core and add gorilla glue, right? I mean, that's basically what a cannabis stalk is. So what this does is it cuts that cells down, so it cuts and shreds across those fibers, exposing those fibers to the the biology of the ground. I'll just keep saying that everything in the ground that's going to decompose that quicker, so it doesn't go to a moldy situation or a funky situation. Also, for the legal ground cannabis world, it won't um, it won't germinate, which is the biggest thing, right? And 99% of that material isn't smokable anyway. It's just fan leaves, sugar leaves, wasted. In worst case scenario, it's a complete wasted crop that has to be destroyed. There's no need for any of that to go to a landfill. So I did a lot of pushing and trying to get these to the right hands and everybody who can use them.
Okay, interesting. So essentially, you were the company rep. You were,
Exactly. I was a salesman and factory rep. Yep.
and this was designed specifically for fibrous materials like bamboo or cannabis.
Correct.
Okay,
And
so
then
it's,
how they all fall into that
yeah, so
category there.
it's a different beast compared to a typical chipper shredder or a chip.
Exactly. Yeah. But
So
the whole principle behind it is not to chop at it, which chopping at a cannabis stalk is almost pointless. It's just going to wrap up in most chipper shredders, or even, you try and hit it with an axe, it's going to be fun bouncing back at you.
yep.
Um, so basically, to break that material down so that it's has a larger surface area, a more exposed surface area.
So basically, like a diagonal cut.
Yeah, if
Or
you look close, I think I sent you a picture. There you go. If you look at how the blades are leaned, they're on compound angles. So they lean and they tilt, right? So they're designed to come through almost like a karate chop, like this. One comes through and then the other falls right behind it, to cut off those shreds. And it actually makes a dynamite looking shred, which I think it was 3 Mondays ago when you had the other grower on that was throwing the salted hay on top of
yep,
his grow. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name off the hook right now.
that's right.
Um, this triggered my thought right away to mention it to you because this is up his alley. Because a lot of what this does is, he was, I'm just assuming, just breaking those sticks and trying to put them down, and I can only imagine the fungus, mold, and mites that probably came along with it. Um, Josh, he pulls all his stuff apart, for he's in a much smaller spot, so he's pulling his apart, doing the same particular thing that the shredder's doing. So I thought this would probably work better for him and his material. I'm sorry, the other guy, the other gentleman with the indoor grow, would be better for his process material to be able to use to get him back into reusing the material instead of having to purchase that salted hay.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was. I think that was Travis that you were talking about.
Yes, yeah.
I think it was actually Tom that had the straw on top of his grow.
Is it Tom? Tom, the guy, I believe was a Canadian guy.
Yeah, the Tom is a Canadian guy, and
Yep.
Travis is from upstate New York.
And, yeah, no, I believe it was the Canadian grower.
Gotcha.
Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
Tom.
no worries. Yeah, this has been something that has been talked about in the industry for a long time. Back in the heyday of legalization in California, before it became an absolute nightmare. I actually did work with a company who was a dispo. So they would buy the product from the farmers, and often they would have it come in either fresh frozen or fresh. And then they would have to bucket and then start the curing and drying process. And so they were left with, like, mountains of these stalks. And it wasn't like the main stalk, but it was like a big branch. So it was
Yeah.
no joke. It was a lot of biomass. And I talked to them about, like, well, why aren't you composting it on site? Because they had dumpsters lined up full of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, that's going to a landfill. This is crazy. Why aren't you chopping it up and composting? You have this huge facility, plenty of room to compost it. And then you could turn around and sell that compost back to those farmers that you're buying the product from. And they thought it was a great idea. And unfortunately, like so many other great ideas, it just fell to the wayside. They just too busy to think about it, didn't want to get involved in having another employee, someone that they had to hire to manage this. And so they just kept doing what they were doing, which was a shame, because that would have been a really lucrative way to, have an added value product to, what they were purchasing.
Yeah,
But,
and some of it is legalities. I mean, like I said, in some of these states, I mean, I've been in I'm going to say 100, better than 100 in some commercial grows. I've been through micro craft grows, indoor and outdoor, and the problem is the legalities of what they have to do to get rid of the material. We're talking locked dumpsters inside, in cages, where you have to have a trained person that's going to dispose of the material. Like, come on, you know. Then you have some of your outdoor grows now. Some of the larger outdoor grows, they're getting permits. They're started the R&D development where they're allowing them to compost their stuff instead of getting rid of it. You know, so a lot of the larger outdoor grows are getting rid of, they're getting in the stockpile and making their own mulches and their teas because a lot of it they don't even understand they can put it in a dumpster. Go ahead, let it rain on it. Take that tea from the bottom. Use that water that washes through it, that seeps through it, right back in the ground. And for the plants. So there's a lot to be said that there's people that want to do it. It's just they don't have the opportunity to do it as well.
Well, it's funny that you should say tea, make a tea with it. If you look into water hash makers,
Mhm.
they swear by that water. They're like, oh, I
Oh,
put this water back on my plants and they just explode.
so I'll promote a company. It's a Raven invasive species. They're out of North Carolina. She's awesome. That's her biggest thing. She has a couple of those shredders as well, and she goes in and removes the invasive species, your ivies, your poison ivies, um, any of your stuff like that's overgrown, right? That's just not supposed to be there. Bamboos. And when it comes to the ivies, you can't shred the ivies. Shredding the ivy and stuff like that is pretty much just spreading it, right? So she actually is in the process of building a tea. I call it a tea kettle. A giant steamer. So that's where I again took that information. Was like, wait a minute. And now you see, there's a couple people online I see that are doing it. Um, they're able to shred up. They take their compost, they elevate their compost, they take the water from underneath, and they spray it back into their plants. I mean, it's ingenious.
Yeah, no, it's basically humic acid production. Is
Hmm.
what's going on in the composting process. So it's absolutely foolish to waste it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I always say around, and just staying in the cannabis world it's a hippie plant, right? It's a tree hugger plant. We're not mixing it with plastic, and it seems like that's the only way it fits right now in the commercial world is it's got to fit in the trash can. And that's tough.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, so that your machine actually isn't good with IVs,
Oh
but
no, it'll take care of ivies. It'll eat up all the ivies, but the idea of like a poison ivy or
yeah,
some of those spores, it doesn't. Them spores are down in there. So basically, all it's going to do is spread them spores. And so before throwing spores or anything like that around, it's removed and then it's basically steamed, useless. And once all that water is out of it, then it goes back through the shredder and it goes back on the ground for biomass.
got you. Okay, so she's added a step to the process
Exactly.
to deal with the ones that have volatile oils and or spores.
Exactly.
Very interesting.
So
She purchased your shredder.
yeah, yep. And she has two, one for the home base and one for out on the road for the stuff that can go through it.
Nice. So
Yeah, she's great.
you've talked about visiting a lot of different grows. Are you up and down the whole East Coast?
Yeah, actually, I was blessed enough to be able to go across the country for a couple years, and do a lot of the different, events, different shows that they're out there and kind of, rub shoulders with a lot of people and my background's general contracting. I've been a general contractor for 30 years. So, um, 20 some years before I even got into the selling the machines. Um, so I get in, I observe the buildings and I see how the processes work and stuff like that. So I get to see what and how and they have to deal with their waste. And everybody has a different idea of trying to uh, I don't want to say the word not beat the system, but get around trying to shred it because there was nothing that was able to do it.
Yes, absolutely. That's spot on. You said something funny. I was a general contractor too. I started at the age of 18 as a repair guy, and ended up like you. Once you're in, you're never out. It's not like you can retire from general contracting. You're either you know how to do it or you don't. But
Yeah.
it definitely brings an interesting perspective into a lot of other things that you do, because you have that experience with, all the different subcontractors and, the different techniques and building methods. So it's definitely, like, I found that it was very advantageous when I was trying to invent certain things, solve certain problems. Having all of those, mechanical experiences of understanding the different sources of propulsion or moving material from one place to another, or different types of materials, really kind of opens up a lot of doors as far as, understanding, like looking at a piece of equipment, right? You can look at that piece of equipment and understand a lot more than, say, a layperson or even someone who specializes in something. So,
Yeah.
so how did you end up going from general contracting to working with this company?
Yeah, it was a complete luck, so to say. Um, when everybody decided to get sick back in 2019, 2020 there, um, I I just was able to move about freely. It didn't slow me down at all. So I stumbled into, at the time, the COO of the company, and he talked about problem solving. So we were out at a show, at a large expo. He had an issue. I said, well, let me have that, and took care of it for him real quick. And by the end of the show, he asked me if I wanted a job. So, I mean, there wasn't many people letting you in and out of their homes at the time for a couple years there. So it went from part-time general contracting, full-time sales, and um, 1 year ago, roughly about a week ago, it went under new ownership, and they had a different game plan, couldn't meet the needs. But that doesn't mean I don't stand by their equipment and what they do. You know what I mean? Like, so they treated me well for 5 years. Um, I learned a lot in the tree industry, in the soil industry. We have several different customers that bought the machine strictly for making soil. One of the odd ones that I never even thought about was there was a guy in, I think it was Milwaukee. He did nothing but cardboard, clean cardboard, and he was a mushroom soil maker. It was probably the cleanest machine I've ever seen because only cardboard went through it. But that was an interesting setup in a garage where he had, big totes set up, and all he did was shred uh, cardboard so that the cardboard would break down. That was his that was his basics of it. I didn't get into the science of it. All I know is it was the cleanest machine I ever serviced for him.
So you actually worked on the piece of equipment
Oh
for
yeah. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay, so you were not only sales, you were actually maintenance and customer service.
I was a one-man band for a couple of years. Yep. I had great office people, great office help, but on the ground, I was a one-man band. A lot of expos. I delivered the machines to make sure people understand how they work, the benefits of the machine, ins and outs of them, sharpen the blades, all that good stuff. But in in the um, in the cannabis world, there's not a lot of. I don't want to say this wrong. Anybody out there listening, I'm not insulting you. There's not a lot of mechanical people in the world. There's a lot of horticultural people in the world, but there's not a lot of mechanical people. So when handing a machine to the cannabis industry versus sending it to a tree guy, I could pretty much wrap it in cardboard, send it on a train to the tree guy. Versus the cannabis industry, I usually drive up and give them a hands-on how this stuff works.
Isn't that funny how farmers, like, they can fix anything, they can work on anything, they can use anything. But then as soon as you flip over into horticulture or cannabis production or cultivation, it's funny, you don't have that same mechanical aptitude that you do in the other.
And I'm not trying to insult anybody, so please
No.
don't blow up my accounts like you jerk. No. It's just like you said, it's fact. It's like
It's just, it's funny how that is. I mean, I'm not saying that cannabis growers aren't innovative, because they are. They innovate a lot of different things in growing methodologies, soils, different metrics.
And I love them because they show me the structure of the plant, as I'll show you the structure of your building. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's cool like that.
Yeah. All right. So back on to a deeper understanding of the actual end product. So is it like all right, before we go there, let's back it up to the cardboard guy, because this is something that I tried myself, and unfortunately, if the cardboard is dry, the stuff just goes up into dust. But if it's wet, it makes a mess. It makes a paper mache. So how the hell did he shred it and not end up with either mess?
Well, one is there is a chute on the end of you on that machine. There's a chute on the end of the machine, so it will direct it down, right? So you can direct it straight down. And two, there's a collection bag that'll go around it that'll keep it down. Now he was blowing it into those. I think they're like 1 yard sacks.
Okay, like a
They're
super.
like a super sack, exactly. And he just had two pieces of cardboard laying across that kept 90% of the dust from coming back out. And that's pretty much how he kept it, was in a super sack. I mean, it wasn't like any crazy humidity controlled area. It was literally in his garage. He had some dehumidifiers and some temperature control in there, but it was a garage door. You know what I mean? So the stuff wasn't necessarily over dry. When I was there, beautiful spring day from Milwaukee. But that machine in particular will do wet or dry material. Some fun facts. This is some fun stuff about that. It'll actually do styrofoam, and then you think, well, wait a minute, styrofoam staticky, right? It's got a plastic chute. Well, they helped develop a guy who does the packaging, the vacuum packaging. And they are able to decharge the chute, so he's able to drop it in the bags. So that company is very smart, very innovative, and they will make. I don't want to say it like that because now they're going to blow up, but they will make the machine fit a need that is needed.
They'll customize it.
There's a need, if there's a large need for it, like they're working on a different type of cannabis machine right now that's going to accept the root ball a little bit better. They have innovated to tracks. Believe they were the first machine on a track self-propelled. They have a lot of great features. They're the only ones I know that cut in that with that pattern. Which will lead to that ending material that you're talking about. I like to say it puts it down. Anybody who's ever bought a triple shredded mulch, the only thing it won't do is put the color in and the age in for you. But within about a week, it's all going to gray up. Within another 2-3 weeks, it's all going to be like that brown gray. You can see it working. How's that?
It oxidizes very quickly.
Yeah, you can see it working. And you can see the bugs under the ground like it too, because it turns to, I like to say, dirt, even though we know it's soil, but it turns real quick.
Yep. Anytime you hold moisture in and provide a carbon source, which is what this is, the worms, the microarthropods, everybody loves it. Everybody joins the party because it's like it's a buffet, for lack of better words. And when it's shredded like that, it's open, so it's easy to get in there and pull the different parts of it apart, like the lignin and the cellulose, to get to the good stuff. So I can see how that would work really well. And I guess it goes back to another question: is because of the nature of the mechanical cutting, it sounds like it doesn't turn it into dust. It sounds like it more pulls it apart or pulls it against itself.
So I think most people are familiar with right dress. I think everybody knows what right dress is. It's probably like a store bought. You can buy it in a bag. For lack of a description, they're no bigger than maybe finger length pieces, but they're all, they're shreds. They're not chunks, right? So it's a more presentable look. Like there's a lot of a customer of mine is in Michigan. These guys are awesome. Tree First. They don't take any material off the drop. They're two arborists. They're two climbers. One goes up, drops stuff down. They put it right back down on the ground. In some cases, they literally spread it out over the ground. Other cases, it goes under the flower bed, around the base of the tree, gardens, stuff like that. They work out of a van. No dump trailer, no trailers. The machine fits right in their van. All their gear is in it. So they're one of the innovators saying that like this material doesn't need to go to a dump either. It doesn't even need to leave the property. You know, um, you could take stuff that's on the ground, put it back through it to break it down a little finer. You know, you have something where tree branches, leaves, stuff, you already have mulch or stuff on the ground, garden compost, you throw it right through it, it'll break it down even further. Um, so companies like that are starting to come around, and different soil makers are coming around and realizing that, you know, you don't even need these big shredders anymore, or chippers, should I say, and these large trucks and trailers to go manicure and take care of trees and gardens anymore, you know.
You know, that brings up a really interesting point. You know, there's a push out here in California to start dealing with green waste more responsibly. Right now, it's everybody throws it in their bin, and dump truck comes along, picks it up, crushes it, or compacts it, and runs it to a composting facility. And just the expense of all of that transportation, labor, et cetera, is a big burden on the system itself, because, you know, it's, yeah, the taxpayers pay for it, you know, in taxes, but the money gets kind of diluted along the way, so to say. So there's a push to figuring out a better way to do this, and that, I think those two guys have a great angle. That no, everything that we chop or prune or you know, mow, whatever, goes through this machine and goes right back onto the property, which is something I've been saying, that it's crazy that they don't do that here. I mean, it's just a ridiculous expense. And people don't realize is they're literally stripping their soil of all the nutrition by doing that. You know, all that stuff should be go right back into the soil, into the profile.
Or twice a year they pay for mulch and stack it too high on the tree anyway.
Right? they
Just
pay to
saying.
get rid of it, and they pay to bring it back.
Yeah. So, but it's funny you mentioned California, because a lot of folks got scared of getting shredders and chippers in California because of the engines, right? Gas powered engines, and 90% of them are gas powered. So, or you can buy a 120 volt and drag a cord around with you, but they're not going to do what you need it to do. So, this company also has battery operated, electric, PTO, and then your gas. So they have things that'll fit in every aspect of the world. That particular machine that you have a picture of is actually a battery powered unit. That was a demo unit that they had out about 3 years ago, um, when California was switching over, making everybody um, buy electric. So that particular unit is running a Vanguard 7 kilowatt battery, 48 volt. It'll shred for 2 hours. It'll dry for about three. Um, it's self-propelled, so you can, you know, you're not trying to push it or manhandle it in any way. Um, so they made that cross as well to try and fit into, you know, that California mentality of, you know, electric and non-gas operated machinery. So, you know, I don't think there's too many that know that there's actually battery units that will work, so to say.
How long does it take to charge up?
About 4 to 5 hours. That was, and I know that's coming down. That technology is changing a little bit. As fast as Vanguard changes, as fast as the company changes with it.
Is there a way to trickle charge it on the job site?
Um, no. And part of that's going to be a safety factor. They don't want a core drive because it does drive. Um, so on a job site, I mean, it's 120 volt. So,
Okay.
I mean, you could charge it from a generator, um, you know, just plugging it in at lunchtime, you know, taking an extended lunch. But truly 2 hours is a lot of chipping.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a good day of chipping, and it kind of tickles some people because, you know, they run their chipper for 5 6 hours, but it's really just out there running because
right.
they got to get those engines hot. They don't do well cold. That's why they're always running 10 20 minutes before they even throw anything in there. Um, Battery power is different. Turn it on and go. It's
Yeah.
hot.
No, and that makes a really good point too, because you have to collect the material, so that's going to take you a couple hours, and then you've got to distribute the material. That's going to take you a couple hours. So yeah, 6 hours, 2 hours of chipping is 6 hours of hard work. Uh,
Hmm.
Add in a lunch and a couple coffee breaks, and there's your 8 hour day gone.
Yeah,
So
most people are sitting in a tree for their coffee anyway, but it's still,
you know what I mean, though. I mean,
yeah.
it's doable, and especially if they extend the battery life to say 3 hours and with a shorter charging time, then you're
It,
guaranteed a full day's work.
and it is all changing as fast as we speak. That one there was their introductory machine. Um, I know they were talking the last I spoke with them, they were talking about possibly doing an interchangeable 5 kilowatt battery to extend it so that it would be a full day. But again, somebody shredding for 8 hours, they're in one spot,
Yeah.
and that stuff's piled up. I don't know too many people that actually, for that particular size shredder, do an 8 hour straight of shredding.
No, you would bring in a big claw machine or a tub grinder. It would
A
screw.
tub grinder, yeah. I mean, if you're trying to get into something like that, that type of production.
Yeah, different animal.
Hmm.
So, would your company think about coming out to the West Coast and doing a demo day?
There's several companies out there. I can definitely get you in touch with the new U.S. Manager.
Okay.
I'll make sure of that. But there's a lot. We have lots of great customers who are on job site demonstrations. You can go to them. There's a couple on the store floors you can go check out. Um, but it's pretty sporadic. It's a newer company in the United States. They're a Belgian-born company, but um, super easy to work with.
So the reason I ask that is because I work out of a facility called Peach Hill Soils. It's about a
Okay.
120-acre site. They bring in a lot of green waste. They tub grind it. They make compost. They make soil blends. They sell different types of rock, sand.
What
Uh,
part of California?
it's in called Moore Park, California. And if you Google Earth it, you can see it's a big facility, and there is a tremendous amount of tree companies coming in and out of there with, the tow behind trail chippers and in the box trucks and dumping, as well as a tremendous amount of landscapers. And the crazy thing is, these landscapers, they have these trailers that tow behind that dump,
Yeah.
and they jump and pack and jump and pack and jump and pack all day long. And then they pull up to Peach Hill, and this out comes this fucking cube. Like, it's crazy. The amount of that they could save themselves in
Uh-huh.
in having one of those shredders, like even if it's in the trailer itself, right?
Yeah, and
So
a lot of them guys are in there with a chainsaw jumping on
yeah, I know. It's
it.
crazy. Like, and seriously, like there's like 10 of them jumping up and down, and a couple of them hauling.
Yeah,
So
there's a guy up north in Oregon there. It's or Oregon arborist. He actually got a pretty cool setup. He's got a roll off.
yep,
And in the front third of the roll off, he drives the machine, stores up in there in the front third, and then he's got all his gear in the front third, and then the back is where he can send all his chips.
yep.
So
It's,
yeah, that's
it's kind of like a mulch blower. Same idea. You have 25% of the trailer is the blower itself, and the
right.
rest is the material you're going to blow with or blow out of. So it's the same kind of idea, but I mean, I could just see endless potential for a piece of equipment like that, where it's small. It's small enough you can get it into these little neighborhoods, because out here you rarely have more than 6 feet between you and your neighbor's fence,
Well,
and that
exactly. So that Tree First company, that was the other principle is, they're in the Detroit area. So like, you can imagine any city area that, you're going through alleyways, you're going through fences that are only 36 inches wide. You're trying to turn around in alleyways or um, unload on sidewalks. You're parallel parking. So, literally it rolls in and out the side of the van in a sense. And for most of their lines, they fit between 36-inch fences and man doors. I literally drive them in and out man doors at shows.
Wow, that's fantastic. So it's got to be like 35.5 inches or less.
It literally is 35.5 inches. I take that little smush of rubber right off the side where it was smashed together.
Only a general contractor would know exactly what the door opening is.
Yeah.
Too funny. Well, yeah, you know what? I would definitely really encourage you to have your, California rep, whoever out here,
Mhm.
reach out to me, and we'll do a demo day up at Peach Hill, because I'm sure that this would get a lot of attention with the local contractors, and maybe even do like multiple days, because a lot of times getting information out to these guys is difficult. But if they drive in and they see a machine like that operating, because they all have to go over the scale, every one of them. So you did it right next to the scale. Everyone would drive by that and see that machine sitting there. And even if it wasn't operating, all day, even if it was like, you had a sign on it saying we'll be operating tomorrow at, from say 10 to 1 or something like that. I guarantee you would get a lot of attention with that. And to be honest with you, you might even get Rob's attention, because what they've started to do is separate the loads based on if it's been processed or not. And by that, I mean like chips, right? If it's run through a chipper, that's pre-processed, so they don't have to put it in the green waste pile and tub grind it. So that's helped them cut down a lot of excess labor that was really unnecessary in reprocessing stuff that had been processed. But here you can take that, the chips that are still very coarse and kind of need to be processed, and reprocess them down even to a smaller layer. And from what you're telling me, it's kind of come out more like what gorilla hair is?
No,
It's like a
no.
very fibrous, kind of reddish brown material, and it comes from a specific shredding process, and I think it's for core. So it's like a core, but it's not like typical cocoa core. It's like longer
Right.
threads.
Yeah, it's not necessarily gonna rip it as if you were gonna take palm and rip the palm down and weave it up. It's gonna shred it down and cut it. So
Yep.
you're gonna get large splinters, so to say.
Yeah, but they're going to be relatively thin.
Correct.
And that's the key. That's a material that's in between other materials.
Right.
And
Yes.
for someone who's like an innovator like Peach Hill, that provides their clients with another choice of, okay, this is going to work really well at, creating aeration in my soil, or, depending on what I'm putting through it, maybe it'll be a higher level of potassium. So again, just giving options that don't exist. Like, he has probably 4 different types of chipper shredder type equipment. You ever heard of Royo?
I'm sorry, what was
Royo? They kind of look
Roy? Yeah.
like an ice Zamboni machine. They have a hopper on it, but it's kind of like a weird, like, I don't know. I've never pulled the hood open to see exactly what the process is, but it's not like a chipper, and it's not a shredder. It's something different. And so he has a couple of those that have been kind of like, I don't know, scrapped for now, because they're just not, they're nothing innovative. And then he's got a tub grinder. He's got chipper shredders. There's probably 3 or 4 different like homeowner model. One a little bit bigger, like light commercial scale, that are just floating around up there that are either broken or, need too much maintenance to deal with them. But something that piece of equipment that you showed, especially if it could go between doors, and the landscapers could actually like rent it and the trailer. I see that as a whole nother business wing, as far as giving him opportunities to lease the trailer, lease the equipment, and bring that material, that specialty material, back onto his site. And again, he's getting paid, on the front end and on the back end.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I see a lot of potential for that, and not even into the cannabis industry. Now that's a whole another ball of wax. There's a group that I know who works for Waste Management. long story short, a little bit of kind of nepo stuff going on. But bottom line is these couple of young cats came out, and their job is to handle these specialty cannabis waste products for waste management. So waste management is in compliance when they pick it up. And so they looked at the muncher, they looked at a bunch of different stuff for handling it on volume. And here again, like, especially if you mix the cannabis waste with a little bit of compost, that's going to put you right into compliance. Like, you're not going to have to worry about, oh, we have to add X amount of, scoops of dirt for every, yard of cannabis product or stock or refuse that we have, which is what they're doing now. And it's like, it's so archaic. It's almost hilarious that this is the way we dispose of cannabis, is per cubic foot of cannabis waste, you need to add, X amount of cubic feet of soil or dirt to it.
It's actually worse. It's worse than that. It's inert material, which isn't even dirt. It's plastics. It's trash. It's like, it's literally going to a landfill. It's not going even into a dirt fill.
Right. So yeah, again, the potential for something like that, especially for these mid-sized grows, like the monster grows, they're not going to want to deal with it. It's too little. But the mid-sized grows, especially like the breeders, people that do have to deal with a significant amount of biomass, it would make a lot of sense for them. And plus, like you said, at the end of the day, you're going to get a product that you can put right back onto the as a mulch around the base of your plants.
Yep, there you go. That's a toe behind unit there.
So that one's a little bit bigger than the.
So the difference between that one and the other one, they're the same machine, except for that one's on wheels that'll go behind a machine. Now, that any SUV can pull that. It's only 1,000 pounds on the trailer, so that'll go behind. Like, literally, I pulled the next size up from that with my Toyota Highlander. Yeah, so that was a tow behind there. The other ones are track or wheels, so they're self-propelled. You're not pushing them or trying to manhandle them. You're just telling them which way to go.
And both of those will fit in through a 35.5 opening.
Now, that trailer is strictly a trailer unit, so that's about 5 foot wide outside the tires. But when you get it on a job site, you don't need a vehicle or anything to push it around. You can put that's a super prop. That's a track unit. That thing's a monster. So
and now is that one bigger than the one with the 4 wheels?
Yes, but not because it has the 4 wheels. That one in particular is actually a bigger unit. So there's different size units for different persons. We wouldn't want to stick you in an 8-inch chipper if you're only going to be using 3-4 inch material.
Right.
So that, they're all in different size there. It looks like, as a matter of fact, they're all for different situations. So you can go track unit for something if you're going to be in terrain, wheeled unit if you're in like a turf area or you're going to be more flat surface land. Tow behinds, they're more in your rental world where they don't want them driving. Now there's PTO units that'll straight up hook up to the back of your tractor or whatever piece of machinery you have. It'll spin at 540. There's actually an electric unit, which is a 480 volt unit for large commercial grows. And there's a 380 volt system and a 120 volt system. Actually, I'm sorry, a 240 volt system.
So they got 3-phase, 2-phase, single phase. They got everything covered.
Yeah. So you can see them all in yours.
What do they roughly go for?
Anywhere from about, let's say 1,000 up to 40 grand, depending on the size.
Got you.
So that unit you're looking at as of a year ago, mind you, I'll just give you rough numbers. The electric unit was 30 grand and the gas unit was 20 grand on tracks. That was the original picture you sent. I showed you.
All right, and those are the ones that run the 8-inch.
They'll run up to about 4 or 5 inch material. Now, 4 or 5 inch cannabis stalk is huge.
Oh, that's huge.
So I put 17-foot white pine through there. The base of it was about 4.5 foot long, and it ate the whole tree up. So in the middle of winter. which is usually a no-no for a lot of shredders.
So more than capable of handling.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're quite more than capable of handling the material and processing the bulk material, which is, when you get into some of these facilities, besides some of your outdoor grows, even the outdoor grows, you're only talking 2-3 inch stalks. But indoor, you're talking 1-2 inch stalks. But their problem is production, right? They're doing 1,000 pounds of waste a week and more. So that's where that's where the size doesn't really matter versus the process.
Interesting. And what is the availability? Like, how, if you order one today, how long does it take? Is it?
For the most part, they're all here on the ground in Georgia.
All right. So
The home base is now in Georgia.
you have inventory present.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And there's plenty. There's dealers across the United States. You hit any of your inquiries right through the website there. It'll kick right down to the man in Georgia, and he could set you up with people who are, there's a large network.
Roughly how many units do you think you have in operation at this point?
In around 4,000, probably.
Okay. So it's no joke there either.
No. And, to stand up for them for what they're known here, there's nothing ever bad said about them. They're just not known here. So like, a lot of your major companies, they only buy brands they know, I won't say any of them, but you see them all on the streets every day.
Yep.
They're just mass produced and made to be thrown in front of people. The people who do like I'll say to people like us, people here that are here watching your show today, that are doing the research on what they can do, what machines, what other stuff is out there other than what's in just the mainstream, because the mainstream doesn't do what they want. This is that company. Like they have touched base with different soil makers, the invasive species persons, cardboard shredders, you know, um, cannabis. When I say cannabis, I mean I've had some fun with it in doing glass and solar panels. Like I'm not going to say that you're going to buy this to go shred solar panels, but I put a solar panel through it. Why? Because there's a company in South Philadelphia area, Chester area, that has actually taken the bicarbonate out of the solar panels and reusing it. So there is some good use to and recycling to solar panels for those who don't know. There's people trying right now. And what they do is they actually take recycled glass that doesn't get recycled just because it's dirty, it's broken, it's clean, whatever, but doesn't make it through a recycle plant. They take it, they break that down, pulverize it, and they mix it with the bicarbonate, and they're making cinder blocks with it. So with those cinder blocks, they have a lot of rejects. And what they're doing with the rejects is breaking that down and using it as different drainage features for different size. So like as what you use perlite for, or different cinders for. So I actually did a demonstration with them where they're taking this bicarbonate product. It felt like a cinder block, like a rock, but it was real airy, real light, and putting it through the machine and pulverizing it down so that they can use it for, filling socks, for drainage and stuff like that. So that was fun.
So the blades don't get dull when you're running glass.
So I mean, if you think about it, I was cheating. They don't need to be sharp. They just need to be powerful and blunt, right? Because we're breaking glass. We're not trying to shred it. It's actually tougher to shred cannabis than it was to glass. We're just pulverizing. Same thing with plastic. I put plastic through them as well. Nails, put nails through them. It just pulverizes it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be sharp. So yes, it takes the edge off the blades very fast. But again, it's not like you're trying to slice it. It's not an organic material. You're just trying to pulverize it.
So in other words, it would not be wise to use it for mixed uses. If you're going to go glass.
It takes about 15-20 minutes to sharpen the blades with a 4-inch grinder. So go ahead and knock yourself out.
Wow. Okay. All right, man. a lot more universal than I realized. There's just all kinds of opportunities. Have you ever thrown something more aggressive, like chunks of concrete through it? See what
Nah, that will jam it up. It does have some safety features on it. So if it doesn't pulverize it, or if, like, all 6 teeth or 5 teeth, whatever it is, hit it at one shot, it shuts the machine off, so no further damage can be done. So I mean, don't get me wrong, there's limitations. There's smart ways of abusing machinery, and then there's limitations.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, but I just had to ask. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
tend to be
Like
pushed
one of the fun ones was coconuts. I mean, we send coconuts through it, so that's kind of fun. It rains coconut juice out the other side, but
Oh, that is interesting. All right. Well, again, the potential for, especially for soil makers and, tree guys and landscapers that's no joke. That's a real opportunity.
yeah, no doubt.
And
I mean, that's one of the changes.
I've never heard of you guys either. So go figure, it's time to get you guys a little bit of marketing out here on the West Coast, because I just see huge potential for it, especially hot down here in the South where shit grows year round. Like these landscapers are constantly bringing material in year round.
Yeah,
Never ends. And I think that they do a lot better and be a lot more efficient and a lot more cost effective or profitable, for that matter, in managing that material in a better way that's less labor intensive, and the silliness of jumping up and down in your trailer instead of just chipping it and going.
yeah, no doubt about that. So, but yeah, so that got me into I guess that'll segue into the kind of the next section there, when it got me into these grow worlds. And started looking up at the ceilings and see what was going on in here, and I was kind of laughing at people with all the stuff hanging in their facilities, and with the dehumidifiers, and you got your air conditioners and heaters and your foggers and everything, and
Everybody's fighting everybody.
everybody's fighting everybody. That was in the part 2 there with Tom, and with having the dehumidifier running and an air conditioner, you're fighting yourself. So that was where I started learning about the reheat. And which is funny was, he's got a thing. He said he's got one of his posts. He's like, everybody's got a Joe. So I was always, in all these facilities I was talking about, I'd mentioned his thought process and what he's brought to the cannabis world. And, it's just funny. It's just, I literally just saw the post that said that everybody's got a Joe. Here I am.
All right, so let's get into the technology. This was brought up a couple of times in the recent month or so. Tell us more about it.
Well, I mean, on the simple end of it is basically adding warm air, heated air, to the return air coming into the facility. So when you have an air conditioner, generally speaking, drops the temperature, right? And when it drops the temperature, what it's doing, it's bringing, we'll say air conditioner takes the water out of the air, right? Takes the water molecules out of the air, condensates. We see it all pouring outside. Okay. The problem is you're putting, 55 degree, 60 degree air back into a room that you want at 70, 75 degrees. Then then you have a heat pump or heat coming on that's going to heat up the room. That's going to bring in, it's going to create heat, create humidity. So you have a dehumidifier that's going to take that humidity out of the air, which is creating heat, which now your air conditioner is going to cool. So it's just an endless cycle of your control in your environment. And I mean, anybody in that large of a commercial world will tell you there's a reason why you go in scrubs. You scrub down before you go in. The environment is key in there. So the more spikes you have, the more it leads to different fungus, mold, mites, that inconsistent grow. And basically, in the long run, it comes into what you're turning out at the end of the day. So the process and the theory of reheat, as I take it, I'm not classically trained by Stephen Landry here, and he's cannabis mechanical, who I follow pretty much as Yellow Skunk Farms because he's a fun follow. Basically, what you're doing is you're taking your air conditioner. Your air conditioner's taking that air. It's taking that humidity out of the air. It's cooling the air. But on the other end of it, on the supply end, basically what you're doing is you're adding a heating coil, another heating element. That heating element is only going to bring the air temperature that's coming out on the supply side back up to room temperature. So basically, you're stripping the humidity and the water out of the air and warming the air back up into the room. That's several things that's going to do for your room. One, it's going to balance your whole room because you're going to distribute this air across the whole room and not just one box in corners that are sucking up and pretty much just circulating it like this. There's always dead corners with that stuff. Second thing you do is remove all that equipment out of the room, which allows for a much more open environment, extending grows, so to say, on the outside edge of your canopy, allowing a lot more light to penetrate the sides of your canopies. All of this is done through a control, through a brain. Most of it can be added to the systems they have. Is it going to save you money? I haven't got a direct answer on it, except for probably not, because it's basically considered like, you know how people basically you hot rod your car, you just kind of change you change your fuel and air ratio, right? You get a little more horsepower out of your car. Depending on how you use it, you can save a little gas mileage, but you know, in the long run, really you're getting the performance out of it. It's about the performance of the unit. So I think there's probably a little bit of balance between not running the dehues and the extra fans in the rooms versus the extra energy that's going in to reheat the air that's coming out the other side and the control factor. So it's been around for a while. Lack of better term, he's been crushing the cannabis world because it fits from seedlings, veg, flower, and dry and cure. So it can mean every humidity and temperature level you want to set it at without crazy spikes in it. So, you know, a lot of growers will get overnight is when they have their most problems in controlling the temperature change between no lights, the plants, and then the dehumidifier. So you end up with, you know, your powdery mildew or just weak plants overall in general, just not happy plants.
Yeah, and the swings are not healthy, so you want to maintain a more consistent.
You might as well open your doors. I mean,
right?
at a certain point, open your doors and let nature do it.
So basically, this reheat system does replace 3 pieces of equipment with 2, even though it's 1 piece. It's
correct. Yeah, you're taking
and the heater, and you just you remove the dehu.
Get rid of the dehu. Yep. I mean, it's an ingenious setup. Really, the only people that are going to hate it is the dehumidifier companies that have, you know, pretty much bullied their way into the system, so to say. They pretty much have convinced engineers and the cannabis facility growers that you absolutely have to have them. And there's proof that they're not. I mean, one of the great tests that I got to see him do was a popcorn factory, which was rather interesting because he didn't think about it, but you know, popcorn exposed to air stales quick. Popcorn exposed to moist humidity, damp, wet air, for anybody who can't figure it out, it stales fast. So they have to control the entire factory for where they're packaging for how that stuff's exposed to keep that at a humidity level that's tolerable. And for what I'm understanding right now, he's superseding that with no dehumidifiers.
So is this piece of equipment extremely expensive?
It's basically it's literally building on top of the equipment you have. So basically, if for those who aren't familiar with how an air conditioner system works, there's what's called an A coil, right? And the air travels this way through it, as it passes through, there's little coils that this coil, the temperature change between the two air creates condensation. It drips down, water comes out, right? So when this air comes through, it's about 20 degrees less, roughly, dependent. Now, what happens is you're in an, I don't know if anybody can see this, but you're in an air plenum.
We can't, but we're following you.
So if you're in an air plenum, right, on the other side, basically a little bit further, there's another cavity where you put a heating coil or a heating element, depending on the setup. This element is only heating the air that has already been, we'll say, treated for the humidity. So this air is just getting tempered as it's heading back into the facility. So basically, like, there's the plants are giving off energy and heat, right? And a lot of moisture, especially when they're in mid-veg. That humidifier or dehumidifier creates heat, which actually kind of, in a sense, makes it almost more humid in the room, to where the air conditioner has to work harder, in a sense. So once that room's balanced, it's a nice balanced system to where all it is a controlled system. It's not fighting spikes all the time. I guess if that kind of makes a little bit of sense.
Yep. So bottom line is all you're doing is adding a plenum with heat coils in it. That's all you're doing.
That's it. You're right on the supply line. Now, as a general contractor, here's what happened and how it made sense to me. I was doing what I like to call an extreme makeover for a guy in a small commercial building. I was working real late. It wasn't hot outside, but it wasn't cold. It was like a 70-degree day. But I had a lot of joint compound, spackle on the walls. I was going crazy trying to finish this place, and I had the heat cranked up. And the only thing I had going on was steam on the windows. And I called a friend of mine, and I was like, dude, I need to dry this stuff, man. There's no way we're priming and painting tomorrow morning. He's like, turn the air conditioner on. It'll take the moisture out of the air. And I was like, oh, you're a smart guy. So I ended up, and all I had to do was make the temperature the same temperature as inside, just drop it 2 degrees. And all I did was take the moisture out of here and start drying my spackle work almost instantly. So using one machine to do, well, actually, let me say this. Using the heat as an example of the humidity in the room and doing nothing but basically pushing it to the exterior of the room or onto whatever was at the dew point in that room and creating the moisture in that room. So that was a small learning experience. And I took that thought, and once he started, going on with how the dehumidifier works with the latent heat and your sustainable heat, sensible heat. I'm sorry, not sustainable heat. You have sensible heat and latent heat. It just started making sense how you get those spikes trying to control it with heat.
No, it makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like a dumbed down version of frigging engineering, air system engineering 101.
I mean, is we talk here in layman's terms about it. There's a complete brain behind it. Besides, his brain, there's a lot of controls that go behind it, and there's several companies that make the material to do this. So it's a complicated, simple system, if we can say it that way. I mean, right down to reusing hot gas, which would be the most efficient way, I guess, to say of doing it, which is when you do air conditioning, the coils outside are hot, right? That's pulling the water out, blah, blah, blah. Using that hot gas in that A coil back in your supply. And there's a simply complicated sense of controls and coils and a brain that allows that gas to flow and tell them what, basically controls. So try and keep it simple.
Instead of dumping the heat outside, you're just dumping it into a new plenum.
Back into the plenum.
Controls are balancing it so it doesn't go haywire. And
it's back working on the system you have. So, as as it said, the 5-ton unit is a common unit. So, not saying that the other size units don't work and that that's not possible, but as that unit's running, those coils outside are taking that hot gas, and that fan, that compressor's blowing that hot air off of it, right?
Yep.
So instead of just blasting that hot air out, reusing some of that hot gas back into the plenum to warm the room. Again, is it going to necessarily save you money? I don't think so. Is it going to be efficient? Yes.
Well, I mean, common sense says if you eliminated a piece of equipment, you eliminated a cost, right? Maintenance cost, electrical cost, cost of the purchased unit. So you definitely saved something. And
you're still maintenance on the unit no matter what. So there's
right.
maintenance to be maintenance, but you're not maintaining a separate unit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there has to be common sense would say there's a savings for sure. It's probably a little bit more complicated to calculate because I got to assume that you're going to be using a little bit more energy on the air conditioning side to move that air, the heat, into the plenum and convert it into, again, another way of heat exchanging. So
I think in the long run, your savings and your earnings are going to be in your production.
Yep.
Consistency is key when you get into production. Like, you could be fast, but if it's not consistent, it's useless.
Yep. You're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one rule of thumb: consistency in manufacturing.
Yep. And it's simple. It'll work from vertical grows, to your outdoor grows or outdoor container curing, outdoor container grows.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fit for anywhere.
Yeah, greenhouse. There's a lot of different applications. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad that you came on this week because that has been somewhat of a hot topic in the last month. And to be honest with you, I'd heard it mentioned, but I didn't understand what it was. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people in this cannabis industry, it's still not an open door market. Meaning, when I was selling these shredders and I would go knock on a door, the mailbox would open up and a double barrel comes out and says hello. So a lot of this is a lot of closed door building. They only go by what they know, and a lot of people weren't reaching out to know. Now, the amount of reheat that's out there now is starting to make a bit of a wave. I mean, you're hearing about it. Large commercial growers are hearing about it. Some of your small commercial growers are hearing about it. I even went as far as, like, for my particular situation, I don't have anything in my room either. I temper all the air outside and pump it into the room. So for a lot of people that grow in tents, that people that grow in a certain small room that have humidifiers, dehumidifiers, foggers, fans, and all that stuff in the room, instead of having all that in the room, unbalancing the room, balance the air outside and move it through the room. It's not going to happen instantly. It's going to take some figuring, but I mean, that was my simple process of it. It's like, yeah, it takes the stupid out of the room.
Yep. No, is exactly right. And outside the room, it's a lot easier to work around the equipment, access the equipment, change the settings, repair it. So that makes a lot of sense to actually create a plenum outside of your room.
Yeah.
For lack of better.
And it created a lot more space inside the room, especially for the smaller craft growers.
Yep. Agreed. So I'm assuming that you did spend a lot of time in the commercial general contracting wing.
Yeah, I was 10 years a general contractor.
And
commercially, working on my 20th year or so in residential.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a huge difference between commercial and residential.
Yeah.
See, and that's where you start using words like, oh, well, the 5-ton is probably the most popular, and that's just because of HVAC engineering. in certain spaces. It just made more sense to have a 5-ton for each unit instead of having a 25-ton and then dealing with all of this apparatus and then dealing with.
It all goes back to efficiency. You know, you're going to try and make it as efficient as possible. Now, when it comes to the overall numbers and math of HVAC, I'm just going to take a step back and go, I got to look at the book every single time. I'm not that guy who can spit out numbers. The understanding factors of things is where I come in. You know, that was my general contracting background. It's like making sense of it and how I was going to make it work for that particular mechanic, you know. But the cross between commercial and residential is very fine right now, especially since my first 10, 11 years was in commercial, and I watched that change. A lot of that thought process move towards residential. You know, you don't think about it, but even down to some of how our electrical outlets are made and how they're installed. You know, that all started in hospitals and in the commercial world for safety factors before it filtered down.
No, that's a good point, and a lot of that goes back to like when we switched to the IBC, the International Building Codes, from local residential codes. That's when you saw a big shift in that movement to pull standards that were more cost effective but functionally safer to use from the commercial world into the residential world.
And I'll say it like this: sometimes only on paper.
Like that. That's good.
Yeah.
It was like when you work with architects and they hand you a drawing and you're like, well, this looks great, but how are you going to suspend this? Like, where's the engineering behind it? And they're like, oh, you'll figure it out.
we call this in theory.
Yep. Oh yeah. In theory, we use that a lot.
Theory.
Yeah. A lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was the joke amongst the guys that actually had the boots on the ground doing the work in the field. Was like, holy shit, how the fuck did he expect me to get to this point?
So when I was in the commercial world, I always said that, you know, again, anybody out there listening, don't get offended. These are just thoughts and fun thoughts, but architects and engineers should do a 2-year mandatory. I say 4, but 2-year mandatory. Don't even put tools on. Just go out in the field 2 years, follow a superintendent around, follow a foreman around. And if you feel so frisky, throw a belt on and run a screw in a piece of drywall or something. But like, to see how the stuff that you're drawing on paper works, because I've dealt with some really, really, really good engineering architects and some that just like, dude, you just drew a picture.
Right.
Like, you know, it's cute.
You made a suggestion.
Yeah, it's a cute cartoon. I call them cartoons.
We called them suggestions.
Yeah.
The worst was then when you had to go back to the client and say, this isn't going to work out the way it looks like on the paper. And, you know, they're like, well, how do I visualize it? Why, you know, what are you talking about? What does this mean? And now you're the middleman between the architect, the engineer, and the homeowner, and they're all expecting different outcomes. And that's never a fun place to be in. That's residential.
I earned my sweatshirt. It says, I saved your ass again, architect.
Yeah, you have been around the block, my friend. You have. Well, listen, we're drifted off the subject here, but it all pertains back to the understanding of this tech, this new, simpler, cheaper, better way of doing things. So appreciate that sharing.
Yeah, no worries. You know, some of the other, I can't see any of the comments, so I don't know what people are saying, but I know what people have said, and you know, it adds a little bit of ductwork to the building, but really, the ductwork's reflective, and I actually have a piece of ductwork going through my tent, and I wanted to see if it would do any difference, and literally, there's no difference. It kind of works like a little bit of a reflector. I can't see anything different from my meter, but on a small scale, there's zero difference, except for I don't have anything in the room. I have a much more room to walk around.
And one less of a piece of equipment to take care of, which is great.
That's it. sold that one.
Well, typically we would ask questions in another 15 minutes, but you only have one question. So let's go ahead and get this question asked and see if this leads us down another path. Because I think we've covered the bases pretty well today, and I definitely want to speak further with whoever your sales rep or manager is about doing a demo here at PHO Soils, because I think you could probably sell quite a few pieces of equipment out of here, because that really fits a niche, unlike anything we've seen.
Well, there's actually no questions. It was we have a new member for the channel, another person that joined and is sponsoring the channel, and we just wanted to give them a shout out to the secretive guy for becoming a new member. And for anybody that wants to become a member and become a defender of the biology, just on the YouTube channel, there's a little join button, and you can join and help support the channel. But other than that, amazing equipment. And I actually reached out to Steve Landry, who is the cannabis mechanic, who really is the guy that's really pushing this reheat system and installing them. We'll see if he gets back to me, and we can try to get him onto the show to give us more information on how the reheat systems work.
Yeah, he'd be great for throwing numbers at you. And I also sent him a link, so hopefully he is paying attention. If he is, thanks for the info, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and remember, he can always listen to it as a recording later. So he may not actually be live, but he'll have the opportunity to hear it for sure.
Yeah, it'll be live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and X as well.
Excellent.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Joe, coming out here to talk to us about both the technology and the shredder itself. I'm really excited to see see the end result as a matter of the process. So yeah, definitely stay in touch with us. All right.
Will do. Excellent, guys.
I did want to mention that because the company's out of Belgium, they ship worldwide. I know they actually ship to Canada as well. Do you know how much their world reach is, Joe?
You name it, it's there.
Okay.
Cool. I've sent them to Kenya. I've sent them to the U.S. Virgin Islands, all over Canada, Hawaii, Guam, Venezuela, Dominicans got them, Haiti's got them, and then you cross over to the pond, and just about everywhere when you cross that pond's got them. In the European nations and stuff, they're bigger in the European nations than here. They're the name brand across the pond.
Cool. And probably Australia as well.
Yep. We got them down in Australia. I mean, they're literally coast. I mean, they're just about every continent. They're on every continent. I know that. I wish I actually knew how many different countries they were in. That'd be an interesting find. I might have to call them and ask that now.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But you name it, they're there.
Cool. Leighton, we're about to say something.
I was going to say worldwide, but yeah. it would be interesting to see, like, maybe even Asia, China, Russia. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, and it doesn't surprise me that we haven't heard of them here, because there's a lot of competition over here, as you mentioned earlier. It's the ones that they get thrown in our face and told this is the right piece of equipment. So we're a hard market to enter because of the controls that the big guys have over, new pieces of equipment, new technologies, better technologies. So it's not surprising.
I mean, it comes down to, I won't get too pushy, but some large companies even started complaining to the point where they said, we got to do something about the shredders and vacuums because we can't afford to flip our companies over. So they made exceptions for shredders and chippers for the gas powered in a lot of places.
Interesting.
So where the backpack blowers and example, California is the number one example. They were the first ones to make an exemption for chippers and shredders. So that whole small engine ban in California only fits certain equipment. And you'll have to 100% check me on this, but I'm almost positive chippers, shredders fit that band where you can still purchase gas-powered units.
Yeah, and it was, to be honest with you, it was emissions reduction was the problem, because a lot of those two-strokers are pretty, well, they make a lot of pollution, right?
Right.
A lot of smoke. And so that was kind of the goal, was to get overall emissions down, both, especially in, really big pieces of equipment, as well as all the way down to leaf blowers. So, but that's interesting that they left a hole open for you guys in the leaf shredder industry.
Well, I mean, if I know we're kind of dragging it a little bit here, but if you look at the difference in cost between that same machine, gas powered and electric, you're talking 10, 12 grand. So, for a company, a large company, one of them orange ones, trucks that drive around, for them to flip their whole fleet over to electric would, that would straight bankrupt them.
Yep.
So, they're out there, the machines are out there, but again, there's a fit for everything, and at least they were able to think about that one for a minute.
So we did end up with a couple of questions. What kind of dog is that, Joe?
Of course. That's this is my buddy. This is Drago. He's an English Mastiff.
Okay. And then the next one is, what's the best rotating compost sifter out there for a small operation?
Wow, you're going to have to get me on that one. Yeah, I don't use the compost sifter. I actually build my own box, and I use I use the shredder. Believe it or not, I use that twice over the winter. I cover it with green, and in the summer, I basically turn it all by hand. I'm a small production kind of guy.
Leighton, what's your take?
So there are a lot of what's called trommels out there. And you can get all different size screens with them. They come on like tow behind a car, small, all the way up to tow behind a semi truck, large. There are even ones that you can screen from one trommel into another trommel into another trommel. So it just really depends on what size operation you have. But I would say if you're a little small operation, search worm casting trommels, because they do have some really small ones that'll even fit in a pickup truck.
I built my own out of PVC pipe and a 5-gallon bucket. They're easy to make. And there's a guy that has the whole list. I think maybe I did a show on building one. I'm not sure, but yeah, you can build them at home in your own garage, and they're fantastic to use. And you can change the size of the screen depending on the material that you're trying to process. I do worm castings and compost. And
I like the ones that you put the screen inside the screen because that way the screens support themselves. So the real fine one, you don't have to worry about getting ripped or twisted in a knot because it's being supported by the other screens. So that's a little trick for you there.
Cool. That's pretty much the show, guys. Joe, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experiences and this new machine, because I'd never even heard of this machine either. So it's fantastic. I'd love to have one myself.
Yeah, for anybody who's into the organics and composting, it's a treat. It definitely is a treat, from small to large.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing one in operation for sure.
Excellent.
And, as always, thanks, Ken, for all the hard work you do behind the scenes, buddy, to put this on. And congratulations to the new supporter of the biology. Thank you for supporting the channel. Much appreciated.
Definitely.
Excellent, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for coming, brother.
Yep. Wednesday, we have Andy and myself. We're still got 2 more chapters, I think, on the book to go. On Thursday, of course, the ladies from Chiropractic is Sexy are back on. Sunday, with Dr. Paula Ruffin's back on. She's doing a 7-part series to help us with our bodies, from stress to dieting, etc. And then, of course, next Monday, we're going to have the guys back on that we had on last week from the Biochar Coalition. So that's next Monday with Leighton. He's coming back on to give Leighton a hard time, I'm sure of it.
Oh, he touched on so many things. I was like, you're going too fast. I'm going to have to like use hand signals with him. Like, no, stop.
Yeah, he definitely moved pretty quick. He's got a lot of info.
Yeah.
Yeah. Way too much to make it just an hour show. But guys, take care. Peace out, everybody. And we'll see you on Wednesday.